times. And then this is what we get. These are called the are these the Mandelstam variables? I think these are the Mandelstam variables. Each of these exists as the channel, which we're going to show, the Mandelstam channels, or the different channels, the ST and U channels, which I'm pretty sure are the Mandelstam variables. But maybe I'm assigning the wrong name to it. K1, K2 plus K1 minus K1 prime squared plus M squared plus 1 over K1 minus K2 prime plus M squared. Whoa. Now the M squared for this has absorbed the I epsilon naught, but it's still there. Okay. And then we have our higher orders. This is just says G to the 4th. You probably can't see it because of chat, but it's just the higher orders. Or can you? Oh, you can. Also, George WTF Bush. Welcome to the channel. Thanks for the follow. And here we are. So this is the final equation. We have now evaluated this. And what does this tell us? This tells us what the new diagrams are going to look like, which we're about to look at. But more than that is now we can figure out that we can define a matrix element as follows. Is this, oh, I forgot, there's no camera there anymore. Fi is going to equal 2 pi to the 4th times this Dirac delta to the 4th of all of the momentums in minus all of the momentums out times I, let's move it down a little bit, times I, and then this wavy t, which will be our scattering matrix element, which will ultimately lead to our amplitudes. So what happens? Well, we figured out that we had these really rough diagrams that had sources in them, that had the big black circles in them, that they weren't supposed to be there, because we know that when we look at Feynman diagrams, they're not there. They don't tell us anything. They're just sources. They basically just make sure that we have something that's interacting in general, right? So the main job of the sources is to make sure that our field theory is interacting, or, you know, behaves anyway, you know what I mean? Like, even when we had just the free propagating field, we still had the sources, but the source's job was just sort of to make sure that something is happening and it's not just a particle sitting and doing nothing. That was the free field, which we did that too. But, okay, so now we had, so then we had those rough diagrams, and then this basically told us like how to get rid of the disconnected diagrams, how to take those connected tree diagrams, and that when you got rid of all of the fluff, we didn't even need, I don't know if you guys realized it or not, but we didn't even need anything about the starting points here. Like, this is all in terms of just the momentums of the particles. We have switched to the momentum frame of reference. Now everything is about the momentum of the particles. The place position of the particles doesn't really matter that much because we got out of everything, right? We got rid of the whole x1, x2, x1 prime, x2 prime was like the main thing that we started with. It's all dependent on the place of each particle, but now it's just about the momentums of the particles. And we have these different channels that tell us basically how it behaves. The scrawlings of a madman, I love it. I do shout at the clouds. I love it. I love this stuff. This is so good. Well, from this stuff, we can... Oh, and let me reiterate one more thing. This thing right here is very important. Let me see what Shrednicki says on it, because I want to make sure that I don't screw up his words. His words are way better than mine all the time. The overall Dirac delta function, this thing right here, very, very key. The overall tells us that the 4 momentum is conserved for the scattering process. Very, very important that we conserve the momentum of the scattering process. If this is not conserved, the whole thing goes to 0. So we want to make sure that that is conserved and that it works nicely. And I think this is it. Let's talk about the Feynman diagrams now. I had to pull them up because they're really tedious to write out. So let's just go over them. And we'll also take a look at what the new diagrams look like now that we're not concerned about where did they come from and where did they go. Where did they come from? and I, Richard Feynman. How bad is everyone cringing?
You could say that about anyone who is not Eric. His words are better than mine.
Thank you, Tyrion. All right, let's look at this. So here we have the Feynman diagram rules, okay? So for each, examining the calculation which led to 1013, we take away some universal features that lead to a simple set of Feynman rules. All of the things we did are going to simplify down to these rules, so that all you have to do in the future is just consult these rules. Now, each field theory is going to have its own set of Feynman rules. Each of the rules are derived this exact same way. So if you have a new field theory, which, like I said, this is part of what I do for my program, for my master or for my PhD program, is I have to derive all of these rules that we're going to use. The rules change. For instance, like we do, like QED will have a bunch of rules. QCD will have a bunch of rules. All of the supersymmetry stuff that I do has a whole set of Feynman diagrams and Feynman rules for supersymmetric diagrams. Yeah, it's all about deriving these rules. Let me bring chat up really quickly, though. Let me put it over here so I can see. I'll just put it over my face.
Let me put it this way. You are the short guy with a plastic sword and I am the bully with the...
So I don't know if he ran out of can he say that word? Because I really wanted to know what that word was, how that word is pronounced.
Flamberga.
I know phi cubed doesn't work as a theory, but where does it go wrong? Non-renormalizability. Where does it go wrong? I think it has to do... Let me just tell you what he says. I feel like I will say the wrong thing. Oh, I remember, right. So the interacting Hamiltonian has a what they call a fatal flaw. Basically that, like, because it's a cubed theory, if you start off, and I'll read you what he says. Quantum mechanically, this means that the Hamiltonian has no ground state. It says classically we can make this arbitrarily negative by choosing an arbitrarily large value for phi. Oh yes, I read that part. If we start off near the phi equals 0, we can tunnel through the potential barrier, and then you'll be on that downslope and just roll all the way down. He literally says, and then roll down the hill in quotation marks. However, so in perturbation theory, we don't have this issue, but I guess like in real life we would. So maybe that is to say that you can't renormalize it. Maybe we just ignore the problem. I mean, 100% we ignore the problem, but maybe we just ignore that problem. Has no ground state? Has no ground state. No. Has no ground state. Yes. Wait, has no ground